Why the toddler kept following the billionaire. Even the black maid couldn't believe the fiancé's plan. The afternoon sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Hartwell mansion, casting golden patterns across the marble floors. 3-month-old Emma lay in her nursery bassinet, her dark eyes tracking every movement in the room with an intensity unusual for such a young infant. Her tiny fingers curled and uncurled as she made soft cooing sounds, unaware that her world was about to shift in ways no one could predict. Maya Washington had been Emma's nanny for exactly 2 weeks. At 28, she'd worked with dozens of families throughout Boston, but none quite like this one. The Hartwell estate was a different universe, one of endless hallways, staff who moved like ghosts, and a silence that felt almost sacred. She'd been hired quickly, efficiently, as everything seemed to operate in this household. The agency had called it a golden opportunity. Maya called it intimidating. "She's been fed and changed," Maya said softly to the senior housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, who stood in the doorway with her ever-present clipboard. "I was thinking of taking her for a walk in the garden." Mrs. Chen's expression remained neutral. "Mr. Hartwell prefers the child remains inside during business hours. He has important meetings today." Maya felt her jaw tighten but nodded. She'd learned quickly that Alexander Hartwell's preferences were essentially commandments in this house. In 2 weeks, she'd seen the billionaire tech mogul exactly 3 times, always at a distance, always surrounded by assistants, always moving with the purposeful stride of someone who had conquered the world before age 35. He'd never once looked at Emma. That thought sat heavy in Maya's chest as she lifted the baby from her bassinet. Emma immediately nestled against her, and Maya felt that familiar surge of protective love that seemed to defy the professional boundaries she'd promised herself she'd maintain. This wasn't her child. This was a job. But babies didn't understand employment contracts. They only understood warmth, comfort, and presence. "Let's read a story," Maya whispered, settling into the plush rocking chair. She'd brought her own books from home, worn copies with creased spines that had comforted countless children. As she began reading, Emma's eyes grew heavy, her small body relaxing completely. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Maya glance up. Through the partially open door, she caught a glimpse of Alexander Hartwell striding past, phone pressed to his ear, his navy suit immaculate. He didn't pause, didn't glance toward the nursery, didn't acknowledge the existence of the 3-month-old daughter who lived under his roof. Maya had heard the whispers from the other staff. Emma's mother had died in childbirth, a tragedy that had shattered Alexander Hartwell in ways that money and power couldn't fix. Some said he blamed the baby. Others said he simply couldn't look at Emma without seeing everything he'd lost. Maya didn't know which was true, and she wasn't sure it mattered. The result was the same. A father who provided everything except himself. The week progressed in careful routine. Maya woke at 5:30, prepared Emma's bottles, handled every feeding, every diaper change, every moment of comfort. She sang to Emma, told her stories about the world outside these walls, promised her that life held more than marble floors and distant fathers. It was Thursday afternoon when everything changed. Maya had been playing with Emma on a soft blanket in the nursery, letting the baby practice her tummy time, when she heard unusual commotion downstairs. Voices, not the hushed tones of staff, but actual conversation. She carefully picked up Emma and moved to the hallway, curiosity getting the better of her professional restraint. Alexander Hartwell stood in the grand foyer with a woman Maya had never seen before. She was stunning, the kind of beautiful that seemed almost artificial in its perfection. Platinum blonde hair fell in precise waves over her shoulders, and her designer dress probably cost more than Maya's car. She laughed at something Alexander said, touching his arm with practiced ease. "The decorator is coming Tuesday," the woman was saying. "I want to completely redo the West Wing before the wedding. This place needs warmth, darling. It feels like a museum." Wedding. The word echoed in Maya's mind. She knew Alexander Hartwell was engaged. It had been in every business publication, but seeing his fiancé in person made it real in a way headlines never could. As if sensing Maya's presence, Alexander's gaze lifted to the second-floor landing, where she stood holding Emma. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Maya saw something flicker across his face. Pain, perhaps, or regret, before his expression smoothed into careful neutrality. "Victoria, this is Maya Washington, Emma's nanny," he said, his voice carrying up the stairs with effortless authority. "Maya, my fiancé, Victoria Ashford." Victoria's smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she looked up at Maya and the baby. "Oh, how sweet. I didn't realize we'd have her out during the day. Alexander, darling, we discussed keeping the nursery area separate from the main house." "We did," Alexander agreed, but his tone was unreadable. Maya felt Emma shift in her arms, and to her surprise, the baby began making excited sounds, the kind of babbling coos she usually reserved for when Maya sang to her. But Emma wasn't looking at Maya. She was looking at Alexander, her tiny arms reaching out in his direction, her face breaking into a toothless smile. The silence that followed felt enormous. Alexander stood frozen, his carefully constructed composure cracking at the edges. Victoria's hand tightened on his arm, her smile turning brittle. "Well," Victoria said brightly, "aren't babies just precious? We should let the nanny get back to her duties. We have dinner reservations at 8. But Emma wouldn't stop. She continued reaching, continued smiling, continued making those happy sounds that seemed to fill the vast emptiness of the mansion with something dangerously close to hope. Maya watched Alexander's face, saw the war happening behind his eyes, saw him take one step toward the staircase before Victoria's grip stopped him. "Darling," Victoria said quietly, "we're already late." Alexander nodded, breaking eye contact with his daughter. He turned away, and Maya felt Emma's little body sag with confusion. As the couple disappeared through the front door, Maya held Emma closer, her heart breaking for this tiny person who only wanted what every child deserved, to be seen by their parent. "I know, sweetheart," Maya whispered. "I know." She had no idea that this moment, this simple instance of a baby reaching for her father, had set in motion a series of events that would change all their lives forever. Over the following week, something remarkable and heartbreaking began to happen. Every time Alexander Hartwell came near the nursery wing, Emma would react. It didn't matter if he was on a phone call, heading to a study, or simply passing through. The baby seemed to possess a radar for her father's presence. Maya first noticed it on Saturday morning. She'd been giving Emma a bottle in the nursery when she saw the baby's eyes suddenly widen, focusing intently on the doorway. Seconds later, Alexander appeared, walking past without slowing. Emma immediately began crying, not the hungry or tired cry Maya had learned to recognize, but something else. Something that sounded like longing. "Sure, Angel, it's okay," Maya soothed, but Emma wouldn't settle until Maya brought her to the window that overlooked the driveway, where they could watch Alexander's car disappear toward the city. It happened again on Sunday. And Monday. By Tuesday, Maya couldn't dismiss it as coincidence. "Has she always been like this?" Maya asked Mrs. Chun, who'd brought up fresh linens. The older woman's expression softened, the first real emotion Maya had seen from her. The previous nanny never mentioned it. "But you're the first person who's truly cared for her, Maya." Perhaps Emma senses something. Babies are more perceptive than we give them credit for. That evening, Maya sat in the kitchen after Emma had gone to sleep, sharing tea with Rosa, one of the housekeepers who'd worked for the Hartwell family for 15 years. "Mr. Alexander used to be different," Rosa said quietly, glancing toward the doorway to ensure privacy. "Before Miss Caroline died, he was warm." He laughed. "When she told him she was pregnant, I saw him cry tears of joy." She shook her head sadly. "But when the complications started during delivery, when they told him he had to choose." Maya's breath caught. Choose. Between saving Caroline or saving the baby. The doctor said there might be a chance to save one, but not both. Rosa's eyes glistened. He chose Caroline, begged them to save her. But in the end, he lost his wife and was left with a daughter who survived against the odds. I think he can't separate Emma from that loss. Every time he looks at her, he sees what cost him everything. The weight of that knowledge settled over Maya like a heavy blanket. She thought of Alexander's face when Emma reached for him, the pain that flickered there before he locked it away. "But it's not Emma's fault," Maya whispered. "No," Rosa agreed. "It's not. But grief doesn't follow logic, does it?" The next morning, Maya decided to take Emma for a walk through the mansion's art gallery, a long corridor on the second floor lined with paintings that Mrs. Chun had assured her was acceptable during Mr. Hartwell's working hours. Emma seemed to enjoy the colors and movement, her eyes tracking the artwork with surprising focus. They were admiring a large landscape when Maya heard voices approaching. She recognized Alexander's voice immediately, but the second voice made her pause. Victoria, speaking in tones very different from the saccharine sweetness she displayed during their first meeting. "I'm not being unreasonable, Alexander. I'm being practical. We can't build a life together with constant reminders of Caroline everywhere." "This is still Caroline's home," Alexander replied, his voice tight. "It's our home now, or it will be after the wedding. And that includes the child situation." Maya's blood ran cold. She should leave, should make her presence known, but her feet wouldn't move. "Emma is my daughter," Alexander said, and Maya heard something dangerous in his tone. "A daughter you can't even look at," Victoria countered. "Don't think I haven't noticed. You've built an entire wing to avoid her. You've hired staff to ensure you never have to interact with her. Be honest with yourself, darling. She's better off with people who can actually care for her. People who aren't broken by her very existence." The silence stretched so long Maya thought they might have moved away. Then Alexander spoke, his voice barely audible. "What are you suggesting?" "I have cousins in Switzerland. They've been trying to adopt for years. They're wonderful people, wealthy, stable. The child would have everything she needs, and you'd be free to move forward. We'd be free to start fresh, build our own family someday without all this heaviness." Maya's arms tightened around Emma instinctively. She must have made a sound because suddenly the conversation stopped. "Is someone there?" Victoria called out. Maya forced herself to step into view, her heart hammering. "I'm sorry. I was just showing Emma the artwork. I didn't mean to intrude." Victoria's eyes narrowed, calculating how much Maya might have overheard. "The nursery is 2 floors down, isn't it? Quite a distance to wander." "I was told the gallery was acceptable during the day," Maya said, keeping her voice steady despite the fury building inside her. Alexander stood motionless, his face a mask, but Maya saw his eyes flick to Emma, saw something pass through his expression before he shut it down. "We'll continue this discussion later," he told Victoria, then turned and walked away without another word. Victoria approached Maya with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I should introduce myself properly. We met briefly, but I don't think we really connected. I'm going to be the lady of this house very soon, which means we'll be seeing quite a lot of each other." "Of course, Ms. Ashford. Please call me Victoria. And I wanted to say, you're doing wonderful work with her. Alexander mentioned you came highly recommended." Emma chose that moment to begin fussing, reaching toward the direction Alexander had disappeared. Victoria's smile tightened. "She does that a lot, doesn't she? Reaches for him." Maya nodded, unsure where this was leading. "Heartbreaking, really, for everyone involved." Victoria's tone was sympathetic, but her eyes remained cold. "Children need stability, Maya. They need parents who are present, emotionally available. Don't you think? Every child deserves to be loved," Maya said carefully. "Exactly my point, which is why difficult decisions sometimes become necessary, for the child's own good." Victoria touched Maya's shoulder lightly. "I hope we can count on your discretion regarding family matters. I'd hate for unnecessary drama to affect your position here." The threat was unmistakable, wrapped in velvet but sharp as a knife. That night, Maya lay awake in her small room adjacent to the nursery, listening to Emma's soft breathing through the baby monitor. She thought about Victoria's words, about the conversation she'd overheard, about the way Alexander's hands had clenched when Victoria mentioned giving Emma away. She thought about her own mother, who'd raised 3 children on a waitress's salary after Maya's father left, who'd worked double shifts to keep them fed and housed, who'd never once made them feel like burdens despite how hard life became. Maya knew what it meant to be wanted, to be fought for. Emma deserved that too. The question was, what could a nanny do against a billionaire and his calculating fiancé? As if in answer, Emma stirred in her crib, making small sounds. Maya went to her, lifted her gently, and the baby immediately settled against her chest with a contented sigh. "I won't let anyone hurt you," Maya whispered. "I don't know how, but I won't." She had no idea that Alexander Hartwell stood outside the nursery door at that very moment, his hand raised to knock, having heard every word. Or that he'd been standing there for the past 3 nights, listening to Maya sing to his daughter, tell her stories, promise her a world of love that he felt incapable of providing. He lowered his hand and walked away, but for the first time since Caroline's death, something inside the fortress he'd built around his heart had cracked open just enough to let in a sliver of terrible, painful hope. Maya had been a nanny long enough to recognize when something was wrong. The signs were subtle at first. Victoria spending more time at the mansion, always appearing when Maya had Emma in the main parts of the house, always with that calculating smile. The way certain staff members suddenly became distant, as if they'd been warned against fraternizing with her. It was Wednesday afternoon when Maya discovered just how far Victoria's plans had progressed. Emma had been particularly fussy that day, fighting sleep despite Maya's best efforts. On impulse, Maya decided to take her to the library, a massive room on the first floor that nobody seemed to use. The afternoon light streamed through tall windows, and Maya thought the change of scenery might help. She was reading Goodnight Moon for the 3rd time when she heard voices in the adjacent study. The doors between the rooms were massive oak affairs, closed but not quite latched. Sound carried through the gap with perfect clarity. "The lawyers have drawn up the papers." Victoria's voice, crisp and businesslike. "They're calling it a voluntary guardianship transfer. Much cleaner than adoption and faster. Your cousins in Switzerland can take custody within the month. I still think Alexander should make this decision himself." A male voice Maya didn't recognize. Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Alexander can barely function when he sees the child. He's paralyzed by grief and guilt. Someone has to make the hard choices, and since I'll be his wife in 6 weeks, that responsibility falls to me. I'm protecting him, David, from himself, from a lifetime of pain, from a situation that will only get worse as the child grows and looks more like Caroline. And the nanny? She'll be let go immediately after the transfer. Generous severance, glowing recommendation, non-disclosure agreement. She'll sign. They always do when the money's right." Maya's hands trembled so violently she had to set the book down. Emma, sensing her distress, began to whimper. Maya held her close, her mind racing. "What if Alexander changes his mind?" David asked. "He won't. Not once I explain how much better off the child will be with a family who actually wants her. Alexander is a practical man beneath the grief. He'll see reason, especially when I present it as what Caroline would have wanted, their daughter raised in a loving home rather than by hired help in a mausoleum." The cruelty of it took Maya's breath away. Using a dead woman's memory to justify abandoning her child. "When will you tell him?" David pressed. "I'm having dinner with him tonight. I'll present it then, fait accompli. The lawyers, the transfer papers, the travel arrangements for the child, all handled. All he has to do is sign. I'll make him understand it's the compassionate choice." Maya didn't wait to hear more. She grabbed the diaper bag and hurried from the library through a side exit, her heart pounding. She needed to think, needed to figure out what to do. She had no legal standing, no right to interfere in Alexander Hartwell's family decisions. But she wouldn't, let Emma be given away like an unwanted possession. She was halfway to the nursery when she literally collided with Alexander himself. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Hartwell," Maya gasped, steadying Emma, who'd startled at the impact. Alexander reached out to steady her, his hands on her shoulders. It was the first time he'd touched her, and the contact felt electric. "Are you all right? You look upset." This was it. Her only chance. "Mr. Hartwell, I need to speak with you. It's about Emma." Something shifted in his expression, that familiar pain surfacing before he could suppress it. "Is she unwell?" "No, she's perfect. But Overheard something I think you need to know about. Alexander glanced around the hallway, then gestured to a nearby sitting room. We can talk here. Once inside with the door closed, Maya took a deep breath. This could cost her everything, but staying silent would cost Emma far more. Your fiancé is planning to have Emma sent to Switzerland. To her cousins. The papers are already drawn up. She's going to ask you to sign them tonight. The color drained from Alexander's face. What? I overheard her in the study just now, talking to someone named David. She's having lawyers arrange a guardianship transfer. She said. Maya's voice broke. She said Emma would be better off with people who actually want her. Alexander moved to the window, his back to Maya. His shoulders were rigid, his hands clenched at his sides. The silence stretched so long Maya wondered if he'd heard her at all. Is she wrong? He finally asked, his voice hollow. Maya felt anger flash through her grief. Yes. She's absolutely wrong. I haven't held my daughter since the day she was born, Alexander said, still not turning around. I can't look at her without seeing Caroline dying in that hospital bed. I can't hear her cry without remembering the choice I made, the choice that failed. What kind of father is that? A father who's grieving, Maya said firmly. A father who's in pain. But pain can heal, Mr. Hartwell. Being given away to strangers halfway around the world, that damage is permanent. She'd have stability. 2 parents who could love her without reservation. Without all this, he gestured vaguely, brokenness. She'd have nothing, Maya countered, her voice rising despite her best efforts to stay professional. No connection to her mother, no link to her heritage, no knowledge of who her father was. She'd grow up knowing she was given away, wondering what was so wrong with her that her own parent couldn't stand to be near her. Alexander finally turned, and Maya saw tears streaming down his face. It shocked her. This composed billionaire, this untouchable titan of industry, completely undone. I chose Caroline, he whispered. When the doctors said they might only be able to save one of them, I told them to save my wife. I was willing to let Emma die to keep Caroline alive. What kind of man does that make me? How can I look at my daughter knowing I chose her death? Emma, as if understanding the weight of the moment, reached out her small hand toward her father. Not crying, not fussing, just reaching, her dark eyes fixed on his face. You made an impossible choice in an impossible moment, Maya said gently. But Emma lived, Mr. Hartwell. Against all odds, she survived. She's here. She's yours. And every single day, she looks for you. She knows your voice, your footsteps. She reaches for you because even at 3 months old, she knows you're her father. You can't undo the past, but you can choose her now. Today. That's what matters. Alexander stared at his daughter's outstretched hand. 30 seconds passed. A minute. Maya held her breath. Then, slowly, trembling, Alexander Hartwell reached out and let his daughter's tiny fingers wrap around his thumb. The sound he made was something between a laugh and a sob. Emma gurgled happily, holding tight to her father's hand, and Maya saw something she'd never thought she'd witness. Alexander Hartwell smiled at his child. She's so small, he whispered. She's strong, Maya corrected. Like her mother must have been. Alexander looked at Maya with new eyes, really seeing her for the first time. You would have risked your job to tell me this. Why? Because Emma deserves to be fought for. Every child does. He nodded slowly, his thumb still captured by his daughter's grip. Victoria will be here in 2 hours for dinner. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Take Emma to your room and stay there, no matter what you hear. Can you do that? Maya's heart sank. You're going to sign the papers. No, Alexander said, and his voice carried a strength Maya hadn't heard before. I'm going to remind my fiancé that some things in this world are more important than convenience or appearances or comfort. I'm going to fight for my daughter. I just need to know she's safe while I do it. Relief flooded through Maya. We'll be in the nursery. But Mr. Hartwell, be careful. Victoria strikes me as someone who doesn't lose gracefully. Neither do I, Alexander said. He looked down at Emma one more time, then gently extracted his thumb from her grasp. Take care of her. Always. As Maya left with Emma, she glanced back to see Alexander standing at the window, his reflection showing a man who'd finally found something worth fighting for. Upstairs, Maya paced the nursery, unable to sit still. She fed Emma, changed her, played with her, all while straining to hear any sound from the floors below. At precisely 7 o'clock, she heard the front door open. Victoria's bright voice calling out for Alexander. Footsteps moving toward the dining room. Then, 20 minutes later, raised voices. Victoria's sharp tone cutting through the mansion's usual quiet. Maya couldn't make out words, but the anger was unmistakable. Emma slept peacefully through it all, unaware that her entire future hung in the balance downstairs. The shouting continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Then silence. The front door slammed. An engine roared to life and faded away. Maya waited, her heart in her throat, until she heard footsteps approaching the nursery. The door opened to reveal Alexander, his tie loosened, his hair disheveled, but his eyes clear. "It's done," he said simply. "The engagement is over. Victoria's gone. And Emma stays exactly where she belongs." Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. "Thank you." "No," Alexander said, stepping fully into the nursery for the first time. "Thank you. For caring about my daughter when I couldn't. For being brave enough to tell me the truth. For fighting for her." He approached the crib where Emma slept, and this time, he didn't look away. He stood there, watching her breathe, and Maya saw a father truly seeing his child for the first time. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted quietly. "I don't know how to be what she needs." "No parent does at first," Maya assured him. "But you learn. Together." Alexander nodded, then did something that surprised them both. He carefully, nervously, reached into the crib and lifted his sleeping daughter into his arms. Emma stirred, blinked up at him, and smiled before settling against his chest with a contented sigh. And Alexander Hartwell, billionaire CEO, master of industry, finally broke down and cried for everything he'd lost and everything he'd nearly thrown away. Maya quietly slipped from the room, giving father and daughter their first real moment together, and allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this broken family might find a way to heal. The mansion felt different in the days following Victoria's departure. It wasn't anything Maya could quite put her finger on at first. The same staff moved through the same routines, the same sunlight filtered through the same windows. But there was a shift in the air, like a held breath finally released. Alexander didn't become a perfect father overnight. That wasn't how trauma worked, and Maya had seen enough families navigate grief to know that healing was never linear. But he tried, and that trying made all the difference. The first morning after his confrontation with Victoria, Alexander appeared at the nursery door at 6 a.m., still in pajamas, something Maya suspected he never wore before now, always dressing in suits even at home. "I thought maybe I could help with the morning routine?" His uncertainty was palpable. "If that's appropriate. I don't want to intrude on your work." Maya smiled gently. "Mr. Hartwell, you could never intrude on time with your own daughter." She showed him how to prepare Emma's bottle, test the temperature, support her head properly while feeding. His hand shook at first, and Emma seemed confused by this new person attempting to care for her. She fussed and turned away, searching for Maya. "She doesn't want me," Alexander said, defeat creeping into his voice. "She doesn't know you yet," Maya corrected gently. "She will. Babies need consistency. Come back tomorrow morning. And the morning after that. She'll learn your smell, your voice, the way you hold her. Give her time. Give yourself time." He did come back. Every morning for a week, he appeared at the nursery, learning the rhythms of his daughter's day. Maya watched him fumble with diapers, struggle to interpret Emma's different cries, panic when she spit up on his expensive pajamas. But she also saw him smile when Emma grabbed his finger, heard him laugh when she made funny faces, noticed the way he'd started keeping a framed photo of Caroline on the nursery dresser instead of hiding every reminder of her. "I think she had your eyes," Maya ventured one morning, seeing him staring at Caroline's picture while Emma dozed against his shoulder. Emma, I mean. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Caroline used to say our daughter would be beautiful no matter what, but she hoped she'd have her mother's strength. He looked down at Emma. She was right on both counts. It was the first time Maya had heard him speak about Caroline without his voice breaking, without that wall of anguish slamming down.
Progress, she thought.
Slow, painful progress. The staff began to notice the changes too. Rosa commented on it one afternoon while helping Maya with laundry. Mr. Alexander played music in his study yesterday, she said, wonder in her voice. Classical piano. He hasn't played music in this house since Miss Caroline passed. Mrs. Chin said she heard him humming this morning. He's finding his way back, Maya said softly, folding one of Emma's tiny onesies. Because of you, Rosa insisted. You saved that baby, Maya. You saved both of them. But Maya shook her head. I just told the truth. Alexander saved himself when he chose to listen. 2 weeks after Victoria's departure, Alexander asked Maya to join him in his study after Emma was asleep for the night. Maya's heart raced as she walked through the mansion's corridors. In all her years of childcare, late-night meetings with employers rarely brought good news. Alexander stood by the window overlooking the garden, hands in his pockets. Sit, please. This isn't a formal conversation. Maya perched on the edge of a leather chair, hands folded in her lap. I've been thinking about what you said, Alexander began, not turning around. About Emma deserving to be fought for. About her needing more than hired help, no matter how wonderful that help might be. Maya's stomach dropped. He was going to let her go. I've decided to make some significant changes, he continued. I'm reducing my work travel by 70%. I'll be working from home 3 days a week. I've hired a grief counselor, Dr. Sarah Chin comes highly recommended. She specializes in parental loss and father-daughter relationships. He finally turned to face her. I'm trying to become the father Emma deserves. But I need help, Maya. Not just with the practical aspects of childcare, but with learning how to be present. How to connect. How to love her without feeling like I'm betraying Caroline's memory. That's wonderful, Mr. Hartwell, Maya said, genuinely moved. Please call me Alexander. At least in private. Mr. Hartwell is the person I was before I held my daughter and realized what I'd almost lost. He sat across from her. I want you to stay on, but with an expanded role. Not just as Emma's nanny, but as, I don't know what to call it, a family counselor? A guide? A bridge, Maya suggested. Between you and Emma until you can build your own connection.
Exactly.
Your salary will triple, and you'll have full authority to structure Emma's care however you think best, including my involvement in it. If you think I need to be more hands-on, tell me. If you think I need to step back, tell me. I trust your judgment more than my own right now. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You don't need to pay me more for that. Helping families heal. That's why I became a nanny in the first place. Nevertheless, you'll be compensated appropriately. You risked everything to protect my daughter. That deserves recognition. He paused. There's something else. I've been looking into Caroline's family. Her parents passed before we met, but she has a sister in Portland. Rachel. They'd been estranged. Family drama I never fully understood. But I think Emma deserves to know her mother's family. I was hoping you might help facilitate that connection. Of course, Maya said. Family is everything, Alexander. The more love Emma has in her life, the better. Over the following weeks, Maya watched Alexander transform. The changes were small at first, moving his morning meetings to accommodate Emma's wake-up time, keeping his study door open so he could hear her playing, eating lunch in the nursery instead of his formal dining room. But the bigger transformation was emotional. Dr. Chen's sessions were clearly helping him work through the trauma of Caroline's death, and he started talking about his late wife more freely. He told Emma stories about her mother, how they'd met at a charity gala, how Caroline had made him laugh with her terrible jokes, how she'd been so excited about becoming a mother. Your mama would have loved you so much, he told Emma one evening as Maya supervised bath time. She fought so hard to meet you. I think she'd want me to love you enough for both of us. Emma splashed happily, soaking Alexander's shirt. Instead of recoiling, He laughed, a genuine, full-bodied laugh that made Rosa poke her head in from the hallway just to confirm she'd actually heard it. The breakthrough came on a Saturday morning exactly 1 month after Victoria's departure. Maya had given Alexander overnight solo duty for the first time. She'd stayed in the adjacent room in case of emergencies, but Emma's care was entirely his responsibility. She woke at 5 a.m. to silence. No crying, no calling for help. Worried, she slipped into the nursery. Alexander sat in the rocking chair, Emma cradled against his chest, both of them asleep. A half-empty bottle sat on the side table. Alexander's hand rested protectively on Emma's back, and the baby's tiny fingers clutched his shirt. On the floor beside them lay a photo album. Pictures of Caroline pregnant, radiant, placing her hands on her belly. Maya's heart swelled. She grabbed a blanket and draped it carefully over both of them, then retreated to let them sleep. When Alexander woke an hour later, he found Maya in the kitchen making coffee. He appeared in the doorway, Emma still in his arms, looking rumpled and exhausted and happier than Maya had ever seen him. She woke at 2 a.m. crying, he reported. I changed her, fed her, walked with her until she settled. Then we sat together, and I showed her pictures of Caroline. Told her about the day we found out she was coming. I think, his voice caught. I think I finally told my wife goodbye. And my daughter hello. Maya set down her coffee mug and walked over to them. Emma looked between the two adults, then smiled, a real, genuine baby smile that transformed her whole face. She's smiling, Alexander breathed. Is that normal at this age? Some babies smile early, Maya said. But I think she's smiling because she's happy. Because she finally has what she's been reaching for all along. What's that? Her father's love. Alexander looked down at his daughter, and Maya saw tears streaming down his face. But these weren't tears of grief or guilt. These were tears of joy, of relief, of a love finally allowed to surface. I'm going to contact Rachel today, he said. Caroline's sister. Emma should know all the people who loved her mother. And I think I need to thank Rachel for being willing to talk to me despite our history. That's a beautiful idea, Maya said. Maya, Alexander said seriously, I know I hired you to be Emma's nanny, but you've become so much more than that. You've become family. To both of us. I hope you know that. Maya felt her own tears falling. Family is exactly what Emma needs. What you both need. As the sun rose over the mansion, the three of them sat together in the kitchen. A billionaire, a nanny, and a 3-month-old baby who'd somehow managed to heal wounds that money and time never could. Emma had her bottle, Alexander had his coffee, and Maya had the satisfaction of knowing she'd helped save a family from destroying itself. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Grief didn't disappear overnight, and learning to parent while healing from trauma was a journey that would take years. But for the first time since Maya had arrived at the Hartwell mansion, she believed that journey would end in love. And sometimes, love was the only miracle that mattered. 3 months had passed since the night Alexander had held Emma in the rocking chair and finally said goodbye to Caroline's ghost. The mansion had undergone a transformation that went far beyond Victoria's planned redecorating. This change came from within, from laughter in once silent hallways, from music playing during dinner, from a father learning to live again. Maya stood in the nursery, packing Emma's diaper bag for an important outing. At 6 months old, Emma was a different baby from the tiny infant who'd first reached for her father. She babbled constantly, rolled over with determination, and lit up like sunshine whenever Alexander entered a room. Today would mark another milestone in their healing journey. Are we ready? Alexander appeared in the doorway, and Maya smiled at the sight of him. Gone were the severe suits and rigid posture. Today he wore jeans and a casual sweater, his hair slightly mussed, a burp cloth casually thrown over his shoulder. He'd become comfortable in his role as a father, and it showed in everything from his relaxed stance to the easy smile he now wore around his daughter. Almost. Just need to grab her favorite blanket. Alexander moved to the window, looking out at the late spring morning. I'm nervous, he admitted. What if Rachel doesn't like me? What if bringing her here reminds her too much of Caroline? What if? Alexander, Maya interrupted gently. You've been talking to Rachel on the phone for 2 months now. She's excited to meet Emma. And to see you again. The last time I saw her was at Caroline's funeral. I wasn't exactly present that day. You were grieving. She understood that. She still does. Maya picked up Emma, who immediately reached for her father. Alexander took her without hesitation now, something that still amazed Maya every time she witnessed it. Besides, family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. And you're showing up today. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. Rosa answered it, and moments later, voices filled the foyer. Not just one voice, but two. Maya and Alexander exchanged glances. They'd expected Rachel. Who else had come? They descended the stairs to find Rachel Daniels standing in the foyer, her red hair pulled back in a ponytail, her eyes bright with unshed tears. And beside her stood Dr. Sarah Chin, Alexander's grief counselor. I hope you don't mind, Rachel said, her voice trembling. I asked Dr. Chin to come. I thought we might need someone to help navigate today. This is emotional for all of us. Alexander shifted Emma to one arm and extended his hand to Rachel. But Rachel ignored the hand and pulled him into a hug instead, careful not to crush Emma between them. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for letting me know my niece. Thank you for being brave enough to heal. When they pulled apart, Rachel's eyes went straight to Emma. Oh my God, she breathed. She has Caroline's eyes. And her smile. Alexander, she's perfect. She is, Alexander agreed, his voice thick. Would you like to hold her? Rachel took Emma with the confidence of someone who'd spent years working with children. She was a pediatric nurse, Maya had learned during their phone conversations. Emma studied her aunt with serious eyes, then reached up to touch Rachel's face, making the woman laugh through her tears. Hello, Emma Grace, Rachel said softly. I'm your Aunt Rachel. I loved your mama very much, and I'm going to love you just as much. They moved to the living room, a space that had been cold and formal during Victoria's time, but now held comfortable furniture, soft lighting, and photos of Caroline displayed with love rather than hidden in shame. Dr. Chin guided them through the initial awkwardness, helping them share stories about Caroline. Rachel pulled out a box she'd brought. Photos, letters, small mementos from Caroline's childhood and teenage years. I've been saving these, Rachel explained. After Caroline and I stopped speaking, that stupid fight about our parents' estate, I kept everything, hoping we'd reconcile. We never did. Not before she got sick. But Emma should have these. She should know who her mother was before she met you, Alexander. Alexander pored over the photos with wonder. She never told me she played soccer, or that she won a science fair in 8th grade. Caroline was private about her past, Rachel said. She wanted to create a new life with you, separate from all the family drama. But her history matters. Emma's history matters. Dr. Chin spoke up gently. This is what we've been working toward, Alexander. Integrating the past with the present. Letting Emma have all the pieces of her mother's story, not just the parts that don't hurt to remember. They spent hours talking, crying, laughing. Rachel shared stories about Caroline's quirks, how she hummed off-key while cooking, how she collected vintage teacups, how she'd always wanted a big family with at least 3 children. She was so excited about Emma, Rachel said, her voice breaking. She texted me 2 days before she went into labor. Said she knew we weren't speaking, but she wanted me to know she was going to name the baby Emma Grace, and that if anything happened to her, she hoped I'd be part of Emma's life. I got the message after the funeral. I've carried that guilt ever since, that I let pride keep me from my sister, that I never got to tell her I loved her one last time. Alexander reached across the space between them and took Rachel's hand. Caroline knew. I'm certain she knew. And I think this, he gestured to Emma, gurgling happily on Rachel's lap, is her way of bringing her family back together. Emma has already fixed one broken heart. Why not 2? Rachel wiped her eyes. I want to be part of her life, Alexander. Really part of it. Not just visits a few times a year. I want her to know me, to have a connection to Caroline's family. What if you moved closer? The words came from Maya, who'd been quietly observing from her seat by the window. "I'm sorry, I don't mean to overstep." "You never overstep," Alexander assured her. "What are you thinking?" "There's a wonderful children's hospital 15 minutes from here. Always hiring. And the guest house on the property is sitting empty. It's large enough for a permanent residence." Maya looked at Rachel. "Just a thought. If you wanted to be closer to Emma, without feeling like you're intruding." Rachel's eyes widened. "Alexander, I couldn't possibly." "Why not?" Alexander interrupted. "Emma deserves to have her aunt in her life. And honestly, Rachel, I'm still learning how to do this. Having family around who knew Caroline, who can tell Emma stories about her mother, who can help me understand the parts of my wife I never got to know. That would be invaluable." "Think about it," Dr. Chen encouraged. "Sometimes the best healing happens when we build new families from the pieces of broken ones." Over lunch, they continued sharing stories. Rachel talked about Caroline's dream of opening a free clinic for underprivileged children. Alexander revealed that he'd been setting up a foundation in Caroline's name to do exactly that, and would Rachel consider being on the board? "I would be honored," Rachel said. "Caroline would love knowing her death led to something that helps children." Emma, the center of it all, moved from lap to lap, charming everyone with her smiles and babbles. When she got fussy, Alexander excused himself to take her upstairs for a nap, and Maya found herself alone with Rachel and Dr. Chen. "He's completely transformed," Rachel said with wonder. "When I saw him at the funeral, I thought he'd never recover. He was a shell. Now he's present, alive again." "Maya did that," Dr. Chen said, smiling at Maya. "She gave him a reason to fight when he'd given up. She showed him what unconditional love for his daughter looked like." Maya shook her head. "I just cared about Emma. The rest was all Alexander's choice." "Don't minimize your role," Dr. Chen insisted. "In all my years of practice, I've rarely seen someone willing to risk everything for a child that isn't theirs. You could have stayed silent, kept your job secure. Instead, you spoke truth to power. That's heroism, Maya." Later, as Rachel prepared to leave, she pulled Maya aside. "I meant what I said about moving closer. I want to be part of Emma's life. But I also want you to know, I see what you've done for my niece and brother-in-law. You've given them both a second chance. If you ever need anything at all, you've got family now. Real family." Maya hugged her tightly. "Emma's lucky to have you." "We're all lucky to have each other," Rachel corrected. After Rachel and Dr. Chen left, Maya found Alexander in the nursery, sitting in the rocking chair with a sleeping Emma in his arms. He didn't look up as Maya entered, but he spoke softly. "I've been thinking about something. About the future." "What about it?" "Emma's going to grow up. She'll start asking questions about her mother, about why she doesn't have a traditional family. I want her to have answers that don't hurt. I want her to know that her mother loved her enough to give her life, that her father loved her enough to learn how to live again, and that her nanny," he looked up at Maya, "loved her enough to fight for her when no one else would." "Alexander, let me finish. I'm not good at this emotional stuff yet, but I'm trying. You've become essential to this family, Maya. Not as hired help, but as part of us. Emma loves you. Rachel already adores you. And he paused, searching for words. I can't imagine doing this without you. Any of it. You've taught me how to be a father. You've given me permission to grieve and heal simultaneously. You've brought joy back into this house." Maya felt tears streaming down her face. "It's my job to care for Emma. It stopped being just a job weeks ago, and we both know it. I'm not asking you to be anything you're not, or to take on any role you're not comfortable with. I'm just asking you to stay. Not as an employee, but as family. Emma needs you. I need you. Not to replace Caroline. No one could ever do that. But to be part of our new normal. Our new family. I'm not going anywhere," Maya promised. "I love Emma too much to ever walk away. And you," she smiled through her tears. "You've become more than an employer too. You've become a friend. Someone I admire. Someone I want to see succeed as a father." Alexander stood carefully, keeping Emma secure against his shoulder. He crossed to Maya and, with his free arm, pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," he whispered. For everything. For seeing Emma when I couldn't. For believing we could heal when I'd given up. For being brave enough to love us both. They stood there for a long moment, a father, a daughter, and the woman who'd saved them both, and Maya felt a profound sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she was meant to be. This broken, healing, beautiful family was hers now, just as she was theirs. That evening, after Emma was asleep and the mansion had settled into peaceful quiet, Maya sat in her room writing in her journal. She wrote about the journey of the past few months, about the toddler, infant, who'd kept reaching for a billionaire who couldn't bear to reach back, about the black maid, no, the woman, the nanny, the friend, who'd found the courage to intervene, about the fiancé whose plan had ultimately backfired, bringing a family together instead of tearing it apart. She wrote about hope and healing and the strange ways love could bloom in the most unlikely places. A soft knock on her door interrupted her writing. Alexander stood in the hallway, looking sheepish. "I'm sorry to bother you. I just wanted to tell you," Rachel called. "She's accepted a position at Children's Memorial Hospital. She's moving into the guest house next month." "Alexander, that's wonderful." "It is. And it made me think about something else. I'd like to officially make you Emma's godmother. I know that's usually a role for family or close friends, but you've been both to us. Would you consider it?" Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Yes. Yes, of course. I'd be honored." "Good. We'll make it official, with a small ceremony. Nothing fancy, just us, Rachel, maybe Dr. Chen. A celebration of the family we're building."
He paused.
"Maya, I know I've said thank you 100 times, but I need you to understand what you've given me. You've given me my daughter. You've given me permission to love again, without guilt. You've given me a future I thought I'd lost forever. How do you repay something like that?" "You don't," Maya said simply. "You just love Emma with everything you have, every day, for the rest of your life. That's all the repayment I need." Alexander smiled, that genuine, full smile that had become more common as the weeks passed. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life doing exactly that. And I hope you'll be there to see it." "I will be," Maya promised. "Always." 6 months later, Maya stood in the newly renovated backyard of the Hartwell mansion, watching as 1-year-old Emma took her first wobbly steps between her father and her Aunt Rachel. Alexander crouched with his arms outstretched, his face radiant with pride and joy. Rachel video recorded the moment while simultaneously wiping away tears. The garden had been transformed into a space for children, soft grass, a small playground, flowers that Caroline had loved. A bench sat beneath a willow tree, a plaque reading Caroline's garden, "A mother's love lives forever." Rosa and Mrs. Chin watched from the patio, both smiling at the scene. The staff had become a true family over the past year, bound together by their collective love for the little girl who'd brought life back to the mansion. Dr. Chin stood beside Maya, having become a regular visitor rather than just a therapist. "You know," she said quietly, "when Alexander first came to me, I wasn't sure he'd make it. The trauma was so deep, the guilt so consuming. But you gave him something to fight for. You gave him hope." "Emma gave him hope," Maya corrected. "I just helped him see what was already there." "Don't sell yourself short. You're the reason this family exists. Own that." Emma finally reached her father, and Alexander scooped her up with a whoop of joy, spinning her around as she giggled. "Did you see that, Maya? Did you see my brilliant daughter walk?" "I saw," Maya called back, her heart full to bursting. That night, after Emma was tucked into bed and the house had quieted, the 4 adults, Alexander, Rachel, Maya, and Dr. Chin, sat in the living room with wine and coffee. "I have news," Rachel announced. "I've met someone. A doctor at the hospital. We've been seeing each other for a month, and it's getting serious." "That's wonderful," Maya exclaimed. "His name is David, and he adores Emma. He's great with kids." Rachel grinned. "I never thought I'd have a family after losing Caroline. But now I have a niece, a brother-in-law who's become a true friend, and maybe, just maybe, a chance at my own happiness. Caroline would be so happy for you. Alexander said sincerely. She'd want you to live fully, to love completely. She never wanted her death to be an ending for the people who loved her. What about you? Rachel asked Alexander. Any thoughts about dating again? Alexander was quiet for a moment. Honestly?
No.
Not yet. Maybe someday, but right now I'm focused on Emma. On building this life we have. On honoring Caroline by being the father she knew I could be. He smiled. I'm happy, Rachel. For the first time since Caroline died, I'm genuinely happy. That's enough for now. Later, as Maya prepared for bed, she reflected on how far they'd all come. A year ago, she'd been a nanny in a cold mansion, caring for a baby whose father couldn't bear to look at her. Now she was family, godmother to a thriving toddler, friend to a healing father, sister figure to a woman rebuilding her life. She thought about the moment that had changed everything, overhearing Victoria's cruel plan, finding the courage to tell Alexander the truth, watching him finally choose his daughter. One moment of bravery had rewritten all their futures. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya sent a silent thank you to Caroline wherever she was. Thank you for Emma. Thank you for loving her enough to fight for her life. Thank you for leaving her with a father who, despite his brokenness, found a way to love again. And thank you for trusting me to help him find that way. In the nursery down the hall, Alexander sat in the rocking chair he'd once been too afraid to use, holding his sleeping daughter, singing the lullaby Maya had taught him. Emma's tiny hand clutched his finger, even in sleep refusing to let go. Your mama would love you so much, Alexander whispered, as he did every night. And I love you enough for both of us. You saved me, Emma Grace. You and Maya, you both saved me. Emma sighed contentedly in her sleep, and Alexander felt his heart swell with a love so profound it still sometimes took his breath away. A year ago, he'd been ready to give this child away. Now, she was the center of his entire universe. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were still hard. Some nights he still dreamed of Caroline, still woke with tears on his face. But Emma was always there in the morning, smiling, reaching for him, reminding him that life continued, that love could bloom again even in the deepest grief. And Maya was there too, steady, strong, loving them both with a fierce protectiveness that had become the foundation of their new family. Outside, the moon rose over the Hartwell mansion, casting silver light across Caroline's garden. And somewhere, in that place between memory and hope, a mother's love continued to guide the daughter she'd never met and the man she'd loved with all her heart. The toddler had kept following the billionaire because she knew, even at 3 months old, what took the adults months to understand. That love, real love, was worth fighting for, worth reaching for, worth never giving up on. And, in the end, love had won. It always did.